And we are back today with the second episode of the Borgia saga. Today I'm gonna carry on where I left off, and at the end of the video I'm gonna tell you why so many of the myths around this family have been exaggerated and the real reasons why there has been so much hate at the time of the Borgia, but also in the years after, and how this family was used to kind of push forward some very, very racist ideas. We left off with the homicide, which is still unsolved today because we literally still don't know who it was, of the maybe favorite, but probably not really the favorite, but still very much loved son of Alexander VI. And I told you that the Sforza family may well have been involved because one of them had been very, very much offended, okay? But let's start from the beginning. Now, the Sforza is a very important, powerful family from Milan. Cardinal Ascanio Sforza was a very important and powerful cardinal within the clergy. Okay, he played a very important part in the conclave, is that how you say conclave? Conclave, for the election of Pope Alexander VI. And so Alexander owed a lot to Ascanio, and during the dealings that were made to have him elected, he had to make a lot of agreements with him to and offer him a lot. Okay, in fact, you can see this straight away because when Pope Alexander VI was elected, the vice chancellor, so the position that he had before when he was Cardinal Rodrigo, was passed to Ascanio Sforza. So the most important position within the clergy goes to him. Okay, obviously the most important position below the papacy. Okay, so to seal this alliance, it was decided that a member of the family of Ascanio was going to marry Lucrezia Borgia, which was the daughter, the very, very much loved daughter of the Pope. Giovanni Sforza from Pesaro was going to be the husband of Lucrezia Borgia. They got married in a beautiful wedding in which all of the people that were invited were dressed as different animals. Cesare dressed up as a unicorn, and there were people that were paid to come out of the foliage of this fake forest inside the room and dance with the people invited. So very, very big deal. So they get married. And Lucrezia, who had been spending so much time at court, is sent off to live with her new husband. By the way, during her time at the Vatican, she was kind of put in the hands, when she'd been taken away from the home of her mother, of that cousin, that woman, the cousin of Alexander VI. And she ended up having a massive fight with Lucrezia's mother, with Vannozza, because Lucrezia would run back to her mother, like run away and go back to her mother, and her mother was very offended that it was considered that she was not in the right position to be able to educate, well, because she had a brothel and everything, to give a good education to this daughter, which had to be married off to very high-ranking people, okay? So these two women, during one of the occasions in which Lucrezia ran to her mother, actually had a fight where Vannozza had to be pulled off the cousin of Pope Alexander VI, because she was strangling her, okay? I kind of like Vannozza. I think I really would have liked to meet Vannozza. I think she must have been a really cool woman. Anyway, I would probably try to strangle whatever woman would try to take my children away as well. But anyway, getting back to the point. So Lucrezia has been living with her father. Now she's married off to Giovanni. She goes to live with him. They're married for 3 years. During this period, also Giulia goes off with her because Giulia and her are like best girlfriends at this point, right? Then the politics change, and now because basically we have the King of France, which is making his way, thanks to the Dukes of Milan, into Italy, and he's making his way south to conquer Naples. Now, his excuse is that he's coming for totally different reasons, but that's what he's doing, okay? Now, the Pope is allied with Naples. Just to give you an idea, Italy is a boot. North of Italy is the Duchy of Milan, okay? If anyone wants to come from France into Italy, they have to pass through there, okay? Naples, the Kingdom of Naples is in the south, okay? So they have to pass through all of Italy if they want to get to the south, unless they're going to go by boat, but they're not, okay? So the King of Naples, who is a relative of the King of Spain, is allied for now with Pope Alexander VI. Okay, so Pope Alexander VI, who was originally very much allied with Milan, is suddenly not wanting to have anything to do with Milan because he's pissed because he's letting the French come in. Okay, so he tries also to create a relationship with France too, because he's wanted to cover all his bases, all right? So he's also trying to create a good relationship with France too, but for now he's still allied with Naples. In fact, Geoffrey gets married to one of the daughters of the King of Naples, and so forth. So at this point, he's like, you know what? I don't want my favorite daughter, well, my favorite daughter to be married to this guy at this point. I want her to be married to someone who's more useful to me as an ally. So he decides to annul the wedding between his daughter and Giovanni Sforza based on the fact that the marriage wasn't consumed. Because you know that you can get a marriage annulled if, basically the people involved didn't have sex. So he's trying to claim that in those 3 years of marriage, they didn't have sex, okay? To be able to claim that, what he does is that he declares that Giovanni Sforza is impotent. And so in front of all of Italy, this is, okay? So imagine that everyone in Italy knows that you are impotent, and okay? So obviously he's like, dude, no, I'm not impotent. And so the Pope is like, right, prove it. So now in front of a whole college of cardinals and a whole load of people, you are going to have to get it up and show us if you're impotent or not. To which he was like, well, no. And so it was decided that the wedding was annulled based on the impotence of Giovanni Sforza. So this is probably very good reason for the Sforzas, and in particular Giovanni Sforza, to be kind of pissed at this family, all right? And in fact, some of the things that have been said throughout the years about this family, the more kind of scandalous things that have been said about this family stem from this situation, because being very angry about this, Giovanni Sforza put around the word that Lucrezia had an incestuous relationship with her father and that they were having sex together. Now, this is very unlikely. They've done very many horrible things. Well, not Lucrezia, poor girl, but the family did horrible things, but I don't think this was one of them. I think this was just, gossip that was put around by Giovanni, who was, rightfully quite pissed, okay? So at this point, during these years, then we have Charles the Eighth coming down, which is the King of France. He's making his way to Naples. Oh, by the way, sorry. So Lucrezia gets married again to the brother of the girl that married her other brother, okay? So very confusing. The other son of the King of Naples, okay? So she gets married into the ruling family of Naples as well because of this new alliance. So very strong alliance between Pope Alexander VI and Naples and Spain, because the two things kind of go together at this point. So she gets married off again, and to Alfonso, who it sounds like she really loved him, and they had a child together, and they had a lovely relationship together. Now, the alliances change once more later when her father wants to be allied also with the French. So as I said, he's always trying to cover many bases. And so he organizes a wedding for Cesare to be married to a relative of the King of France, okay? So by doing this, though, by trying to cover his bases, he creates tension between his two children, because Lucrezia and Cesare are basically married to opposing factions, okay? And you can see that his relationship with Naples is becoming colder and colder. And in fact, he's going to end up even imprisoning the wife of his son, Sancha, in Castel Sant'Angelo. okay? And you know what happens to the second husband of Lucrezia Borgia, which she actually really loves? He's living in the Vatican with her. So he was attacked, and then he was in bed kind of getting better after this attack. And then one of the servants, one of the guys that works for Cesare, actually goes in and kills him. So she's literally, Lucrezia's in the next room when her husband gets killed on behalf of her brother. Okay, so this has added a lot to the legend of this horrible, brutal family. And yeah, Cesare is brutal. Lucrezia was really, I mean, she was distraught after this. So I truly believe that she didn't know it was coming and she didn't want this to happen. But I do need to say that this was just like stuff that happened within the families of this period and within, you know, just all the drama surrounding this period. This is how things were done. Okay, so this isn't so uncommon. It's very sad, however. Also, Sancha, the sister of the guy that's just been killed, will stay friends with Lucrezia even after this has happened. So just to give you an idea that these poor women are just being, you know, pulled all over the place with what's happening. A lot of horrible things have been said about Sancha as well. It is said that she was in a relationship. Remember, Sancha married the youngest of the Borgia brothers, Geoffrey. It is said that she was in a sexual relationship with Cesare and with Juan before he died. So apparently she was sleeping with all three brothers. Well, probably all of them but her husband or so. However, we don't really know if this is true or if this has just been an exaggeration. She will later also become the lover of the man who will capture Cesare many years later. So she's always involved somewhere or another within this story in very dramatic ways. So after her second husband is killed, like, no one wants to marry her, but you don't say no to the Pope. She is desperate to get away from Rome because she's like had it. She actually runs away to a castle that she owns for a while and just doesn't want to see anyone because she's so distraught by what has happened. And then finally she gets married off to another Alfonso, which is Alfonso d'Este, a very, very powerful, wonderful family that we will talk about a lot in other videos in the future. However, she will always be side-eyed a little bit as the daughter of this horrible Pope that everyone hates, okay? Because her brother Cesare will start this campaign throughout all of central Italy, trying to conquer as many of these kind of little states, little city-states as possible, to try to unite them in one state under him, okay? He will get support in this by his father and support on behalf also of the King of France, okay? This is another King of France compared to the King of France that came down the first time. I know this is getting confusing. So, fun story, by the way, when the first King of France came down on his way to Naples, this was the King of France which was like in a bad relationship with the Pope, but he still tried to kind of soften it up as much as possible. His girlfriend, the Pope's girlfriend, Giulia, was actually staying in Pesaro with Lucrezia, because at that point she was still with Giovanni, right? She is ordered to come straight back to the Pope, and she's like a teenager, so she's like, I don't want to right now. Actually, I'm going to go see my husband, because she had actually been married, right? And the Pope's like, you are not going to see your husband, because he's jealous. He never wants her to sleep with her husband, okay? And so she's like, I should go to my husband, but the Pope is calling for me. He literally writes her, he's so angry that he wants her back with him, that he writes her a letter in which he threatens her with excommunication from the Catholic Church if she doesn't come back to him straight away. And so she's kind of pulled in between these two fires. And so she says, you know what? I'm going to see my brother. My brother's not very well. He's staying in Lake Bolsena area, so I'm going to go see him. All right. She goes there. He's already dead by the time she gets there. And in the meantime, she gets kidnapped by some soldiers of the French king, who sell her back to the Pope for an extortionate amount of money he has to pay to get back his lover. And when she's brought back to him to Rome, he actually goes towards her riding a white mule in front of all the people of Rome. So he's not making a secret of this being his incredible lover that he loves so much, that he actually leaves Rome to go towards her to pick her back up from the people that kidnapped her. Okay. Getting back to the next king of France, so he actually manages to have a very good alliance with this Louis XII, King of France, because Louis XII wants to get divorced. And you can't get divorced for the Catholic Church, so it needs to be annulled. And we know that Alexander VI loves doing annulments for not real proper reasons. So he sells an annulment to the King of France for an alliance, for that alliance which will be sealed with the wedding between Cesare and a relative of the king. And this is how Cesare finds himself being in a position to be able to go on this, to embark on this kind of adventure of trying to conquer all these city-states of central Italy. And this is where he gets the name for being so vicious and so ruthless, okay? To be fair, he's not, what am I doing here? I put already like a bit of flour. I want to put this other flour. I've got oat flour here. I want to do kind of half oat flour and half regular flour. Okay, so starting from at the turn of the century, so we're starting in the 1500s, he starts conquering these towns one after the other, okay? So we're talking about Pesaro, Senigallia, Urbino, Forlì. These are all the towns of this area which he's conquering. The excuse is always that they always make up some kind of excuse, like, you guys didn't pay whatever taxes you needed to pay to the Pope, so now instead of saying, you know, pay them back, I'm just gonna, you know, conquer you and take you over. Okay, so he's what he's aiming at is becoming the Duke of Romagna, which he does, you know, and then tries to annex more and more to that, and basically create like a reign for himself throughout all of these states, okay? There's actually some people that think this is a great idea. Like a lot of people, there's a lot of people that are soldiers that become part of his army because there's this discontent with the local rulers, which have a load of issues with each other and are just sometimes not doing a great job at ruling because they're more involved with different, like, personal vendettas between the different families. So there is that, and also seeing, you know, these very big powers like Spain and France, which are these big unified nations, which Italy is not. There's some people that start to put forward the idea that maybe we should have a bigger unified area. We would stand a better chance against these other nations, okay? This is, for example, the ideology that Machiavelli, you've probably heard the term Machiavellian, you've heard about Machiavelli, the famous phrase of Machiavelli, which is the end justifies the means. So he comes up with this concept during this period, and we should maybe do a video about Machiavelli on another occasion. Let me know below if you want me to do that. So it is said that he comes up with the idea for the writing of his most famous book, which is The Prince, by looking at the behavior of Cesare Borgia during this period. Now, The Prince is a book in which he described what a leader should be like. So an ideal leader, which, and that's where the famous phrase, the ends justify the means, comes out. Because a leader should be ruthless and so forth, and many other things. So it is said that he is inspired by Cesare Borgia, although when people are reading this and when he really publishes this, Cesare has already failed. So he does get inspired by Cesare, but he doesn't think of Cesare as the ideal prince because he's the one that failed. So I want to underline that, because a lot of people think like, oh, Machiavelli was just enamored with Cesare. No, he did see Cesare as someone that did also quite a few mistakes, okay? So, however, for now, he's, you know, he's living his best life. Things are going enormously well. The only thing is that he has syphilis. So he has, so I think that's the only thing that's making him kind of unhappy during this period. He literally has to go around with a black velvet mask. It doesn't have to be velvet, but he likes it to be velvet, to cover up all the marks that he has on his face because of the syphilis, which is starting to take on quite a lot of his body during this period. So living his best life other than the syphilis, and conquering here and there. There's the famous siege of Forlì, which we will definitely talk about a lot on another video, in which he takes Forlì from Caterina Sforza, the Duchess of Forlì, which was like the most kick-ass woman of the Renaissance period, like total warrior princess. And it is said that he rapes her during the time in which he takes her back as a hostage to Rome. Again, we don't know if this happened for sure, and we don't know if this is just part of the dark legend that was made up about them later, but he was quite a ruthless man. There was a coup that was organized by some of his leaders of his army against him when his power was starting to grow too much. And actually they met in Magione, which is, I say this just because I'm saying this more to, you know, Giacomo behind the camera, because he knows where Magione is. We live very close to Magione, so a little town in central Italy. That was where the coup was organized. And when he found out about the coup, he actually invited them all with an excuse of like inviting them nicely to see him in Città della Pieve. So yeah, come and see me. He didn't say like, I found out about the coup, obviously. So invited them over and then had them all strangled and sent one of these leaders without a head, the body, back to his town. So this is the kind of things that he was doing. Although, as I said, it wasn't unheard of to have these kind of behaviors during this period. What are we missing? Oil. This is rice oil from Mantova, in fact. Mantova is one of the towns which is very much involved during this period. Maybe we'll do. Let me know if you want a video to clarify more about the political situation in Italy during this period. But I feel like you'll build a better picture of it all as we tell the stories of all these different dynasties from this period in the future. However, so getting back to us, he's living his best life. Everything is going very well for him until his dad dies. So his dad dies of malaria in 1503. There's a lot been said, we've talked about this on another video, about maybe him being poisoned, but it might well be malaria. And a lot of things have been said, like even that demons were seen around his body, all kinds of stuff like that. We'll talk about at the end of this video on why that is. But surely we know that there were very few cardinals. There was only like 4 cardinals in Rome during those days, because it happened during the summer and most cardinals had gone off to the countryside because there was malaria in the city. And so his funeral was not much of a funeral. Plus, like, they just supplied this very small bara, like a coffin, and he couldn't fit in, so they were like smashing it down to get him in, and it was just like very gross situation, the description of what happened with when he died. And when he died, Cesare was just left like, what do I do now? Because he had spread himself too thinly over all the areas that he wanted to conquer. Okay, I think that was a major mistake of his, which is, kind of ironically what Alexander the Great had done. So fun parallel there. So he found himself not being able to hold that power after the death of his father. After the death of his father, there was another pope that was elected for a month, and then he died. And then the next pope was Julius II. Now, Julius II was Cardinal della Rovere. Cardinal della Rovere was the biggest enemy, like the nemesis of Alexander VI. He was like continuously trying to organize coups against the Pope and to kind of depose him. All right. So like total arch nemesis to Alexander, he becomes Pope. So no one is supporting Cesare anymore. Cesare has to flee, but he gets captured, he gets imprisoned, then he flees again and he goes to Navarra, to where the family of his wife, which he never sees, is. He becomes leader of an army there and then dies just a few years later in a skirmish, basically. So it kind of really deflates very, very fast after his dad dies, really, really, really fast. So it's really funny how this guy that had built so much and had become so feared by everyone, I mean, he was incredibly feared by people. It was said that he would go dressed up as someone else into I want to say bars, like places where people drink in the evening in Rome, and then start up conversations about the Borgia, just so that if things turned to people talking badly about the Borgia, he could have them killed and stuff, which was totally not the style of his father. His father was one to really try to find other solutions before going to war with someone. For example, you may have heard of Girolamo Savonarola. He was this crazy monk that lived in Florence at the turn of the century, and he basically was talking about Pope Alexander VI being this horrible person and being the devil, and the Catholic Church needing to be reformed. And Pope Alexander VI tried to make peace with him in many ways. He even offered him a cardinal hat. He tried to find communication with him as much as possible before burning him on the stake. But so he didn't go straight for burning people on the stake. That's what I mean. Whereas Cesare was like, I will literally try to create a situation to find you, red-handed, to have you killed, basically. All right. So I think that the myth of the Borgia being these horrible, horrible people, some people have tried to say no, it was all stuff that was said later, and it was all Julius II tried to distract them, and they were actually, lovely people, which is not the case. Some people are trying to say that they were these horrendous, most horrible people of the Renaissance. The truth is somewhere in between, all right? Alexander VI definitely kind of obsessed with sex and young teenage girls, and that was gross, and I totally think that was horrendous. And Cesare Borgia, definitely very violent and very aggressive, although this was kind of the norm. I think they were a very symbolic family for the kind of things which were happening at the time. So you should take them as a representation of something which was happening all across Europe during that period. The reason why they were hated upon more than others was because they were very good at being horrible. So they were probably just better than others at doing what others were trying to do, if that makes sense. But also because they were Spanish. Now, you have to know that Spain was, it was Muslim for a very long time, up until very little time before this, what's happening in this story that we're telling, okay? So Spain had been Muslim for quite a long time, and a lot of the people who were kicked out, the Jews and Muslim people that were kicked out of Spain at that time, came to Italy and converted to kind of run away from these extremely Catholic rulers which were there at the time. Alexander VI was viewed as a Spanish person, and the Spanish people were viewed as being basically either Jews or Muslim, and there was a lot of kind of racial hate towards these people, and a lot of Spanish people were just viewed as converted. They were nicknamed Marrani. So the word Marrano, which is actually still used as a derogatory term in Italy today, means someone Jewish or Muslim who's been converted to Christianity, and so is being side-eyed as just converting for not for real religious reasons. And the Borgias were nicknamed Marrani all the time, so they were viewed as just Marrani. In fact, it was said that they actually were of Jewish descent, so there was a lot of anti-Semitic kind of propaganda being moved towards them and towards Spanish people in general. And it is true that because he was Spanish, he actually made Rome a safe haven for converted Jews that were running away from Spain at the time. When Callistus, the first Borgia Pope, died, a lot of people, Spanish people, were killed in Rome following his death. Because he had brought so many Spanish people there, and Spanish people were viewed negatively and in a racist way, and a lot of people were killed because of this after Callistus died. And also after the death of Pope Alexander VI, a lot of Spanish people were killed in Rome also following his death, okay? So they were used as kind of this this reason to hate Spanish people and these Marrani in general. So there was a very big racial element in the hate towards Pope Alexander VI and the Borgias in general. So the real reason why this family has been so criticized in an exaggerated way, and why there has been so much hate put towards them in the years after, is that they represent Spain, and they represent kind of a racial fear that people had towards the people coming from Spain. So I'm just going to cut this up a moment. Okay, so as I was saying, Spain had been Muslim, in fact, for quite some time, and it was only recently that it had been entirely made Catholic and the Muslims had been all kicked out. So there was this view coming from Italy that people from Spain were just converted Muslims or converted Jews. In fact, there was this thing that people were saying about the Borgias, is that they actually were of Jewish descent, which is probably not even true, but who cares? But there was this anti-Semitic feel towards them. In fact, the word marrani was thrown around a lot. Marrano is a derogatory term which is used in Italy still to this day, and it was used against them very much. After that, Spain was made entirely Catholic, a lot of converted Jews and converted Muslims had fled to Rome, and under the papacy of Pope Alexander VI, Rome had been a bit of a safe haven for converted Jews, and even Jews that still continued to profess themselves as Jews. Okay, so because of this, people, that were very, very racist hated him more. And also, this was a way to kind of perpetuate this idea of Spanish people being more violent, more horrible, because of this connection with Islam. Okay? Even in France, which was trying to hate upon the Spanish as much as possible, this was used. So, for example, there was a woodcut made of Alexander VI, represented as being the devil, okay, with horns and everything. That was used to perpetuate this idea as Alexander VI being this marrano, this devil, and it was circulating. The print of this woodcut was circulating throughout all of France. So there's a big racist element to this idea of the Borgias being these horrible people because they are Spanish, okay? Now, what I'm trying to say is that, yes, the Borgias were horrible. They were horrendous for many reasons. Were they as bad as P. Diddy? No.